Gangstabilly was recorded at Chase Park, and Patterson actually got the studio time from helping hang drywall to build the studio.
Welcome to Overeducated and Underemployed. We got a great episode this week with Matt Lane, the first drummer for the Drive-By Truckers, the drummer for the Possibilities, the drummer for the Lanes, and of course the drummer for Sloan Brothers on Love and Other Diagnosis, which there's still just a handful of copies of those left. There's a handful of copies of the Lanes record left too. There's links to both of those in the description. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up in the real world to come out of the Rec Room on March 20th for a comedy show with Sean Lubin, myself, some local comics, Caleb Thomas, Laurent Josie Jr., Carol Hatcher. It's put on by Tally Wheel Comedy. Make sure you come check that out. It's $10. There's ticket link in the description of this episode. And don't forget about P-Funk Fest. A month from today, April 11th, at the Phipps Farm. There's tickets available still for that. Kids are free. Link in the description of this episode as well. I'll be up in Athens after that, up in April, for a show on the 21st. And then I'll be in Winder, Georgia on the 22nd, both with Lanny Farmer. So come check that out. Hit the subscribe button. If you like this episode, hit like. It really helps a lot. It helps show this to more like-minded individuals. And we got some really cool stuff coming, too. If you're only listening to this on a streaming service, you might want to go over on YouTube and check the channel out because I am posting some exclusive content, including an episode about Nucci Space and the homecoming auction, the Heathens Homecoming auction up in Athens, Georgia, every year as part of the Drive-By Truckers Heathens Homecoming. I talked to a bunch of fans. Jay Gonzalez popped on. So you're going to want to check that out. It's going to be exclusively on the YouTube channel, though. And as well as that, there's going to be some footage from the Danny Bedrosian show that George Clinton showed up at. I'm going to be posting that exclusively on the YouTube as well. And upcoming episodes, we've got Thelma and the Sleaze. We've got Carson Taylor. I talked to all of Thelma and the Sleaze, sat down with the whole band, LG, Hot Sauce, and Tinkerbell. We had an awesome talk. They put on a kick-ass show. They're on tour right now, so go check them out if they're near you. A lot of folks are at South by Southwest right now. I want to just wish everybody that I know out there the best of shows. I know you're all going to kill it. That being said, here's my interview with Matt Lane. We have a small issue with his mic for the first just like 4 or 5 minutes of the interview. Just be aware it gets better very quickly. We get into Athens, Georgia music history, Drive-By Truckers music history, and also I just think a really overarching struggle about how even when you make great music, you don't always get recognized for it. That being said, check out the Possibilities record Way Out. I think it's a very underrated or at least unknown kind of record. So check that record out. It's really great. It's got Jay Gonzalez from the Drive-By Truckers and Matt Lane. It seems like there's a common thread there. It seems like the Possibilities. The Truckers saw a lot in that band. They, over the years, picked the 2 members out. So anyway, here's my interview with Matt Lane. I'm here with Matt Lane. We're on Overeducated and Underemployed. And I'm just going to start with the question I ask everybody, and we'll get into all the things as we go. But what's the first song you remember loving as a kid?
Yeah, I've heard some of the other episodes and had a chance to think about it. And there's a couple of things I thought of. And I think the first one, like the one that kind of stands out the most for me, was "Sailing" by Christopher Cross.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like 10 years old.
Okay.
And at that time, it was pretty much listening to the radio and whatever my parents were playing. And I don't know. I just remember that song really. I was mesmerized by it. But that's definitely the one, I think.
Were you pretty fascinated by music in general before that, or do you think that was your gateway in?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe a little before that, just top 40 radio and stuff like that. And yeah, but
That's the one that sticks.
Yeah, about 10 years old, I think, is where I started noticing things. And yeah, I like this. But yeah, "Sailing" was. I just still love that song.
I remember the album cover too. The album cover is pretty cool. It's got really good art on it. Yeah. It's real colorful.
Yeah, might not be the coolest thing.
I think part of what I think is interesting about this question is nobody has control over what they thought was cool at 10 years old or 4 years old or whatever. But I think it actually legitimizes a lot of that music in a way, because if it's what got somebody who turned their life into a life of music in a lot of ways into something, then I think that legitimizes the song. And
I'm not like I have one friend in particular that I've talked to about that song before. He makes fun of me about it. I'm like, I'm proud of it, man. I still love that song. I still love that whole genre. I guess it's yacht rock.
Yeah,
that whole thing, and I've always loved it.
So I worked at a record store that you shopped in at one point.
I don't think.
Yeah. And the reason I bring it up now is because I think it had a notoriously pretentious kind of, like, the employees were going to judge you for what you're buying.
No, honestly, I don't remember that being a thing with vinyl.
And I've heard mixed things. I've heard some people say it was, some people say it wasn't. I know I approached it always in the way that I don't care if you're buying Britney Spears or if you're buying whatever. You're buying music. It's better than what a lot of people do. A lot of people literally have no filter, just take whatever is on the radio and they go no further than that ever. So.
That's like that. I've always thought that was people. There's some people in a family, even like this music just is a thing that
it's on the background or whatever.
It's always been like the main thing for me. I can't imagine just not wanting to dig deep and find out about this artist, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm curious, when did you start buying records then? Was it around 10? Was that when you started seeking stuff out and going? And I know that Bainbridge, where you grew up, didn't really have a record store when you were a kid.
Not really. It's funny.
I think they do now.
Yeah, I don't. There was a record store when we were kids. It was just in the mall.
Like a Sam Goody or something like that?
It wasn't even any. It might have been Musicland for a while, but it changed name. Like, I don't think Record Bar, but something like that, Record Bar or something.
So there was a company that owned all of those at one point. Eventually they had bought Record Bar, Musicland, Sam Goody, and FYE had bought all of those stores at one point. So I have a feeling that probably has something to do with it.
Yeah, it changed names a couple of times from what I recall. But it's funny that I remember that being where Kevin, my brother, he might have mentioned this when you talked to him, but we pulled our money together and bought a Quiet Riot record at that place. And that I think that was like the first, if I remember right, that was like the first record that I paid money for. And Kevin and I had to put our allowances together. And we bought it. I think it was Condition Critical by Quiet Riot. It might have been the first Mental Health. I think it was Condition Critical.
Nice.
But yeah,
I love both of those records.
I mean, I still do too, man.
It's fun stuff.
I have a soft spot for that. And we started our first quote unquote band was playing the Quiet Riot record and just miming along to it.
When was it that you decided, just to back up just a little bit, when did you decide to like get your own instruments and all that sort of thing? And I want to play music. I don't want to just listen to it.
Yeah, we just always had it around. Our dad was a musician, and so there was always guitars around. You know, it was just always, and we just pick them up and mess around. So it was just.
So they were there.
Always there.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I guess it's like that. What I'm talking about was playing along the Quiet Riot records that was probably 12, 13, maybe something like that. So Kevin would have been 10, 11, kind of that. That was the start of. It wasn't a band, as in we were playing the music, but we had guitars and we were just miming along. And I got a drum set at some point. It's an old Remo drum set, which is I don't even really see those. I haven't really seen many Remo drum sets, the Remo heads and all that. But I don't even remember how we got that thing or where it came from. But it was probably around 12 or 13. I was 13 when we started that, and that kind of just evolved into Kevin started learning how to play guitar. I gravitated toward the drums. It's kind of band ever since then.
So you were gravitating towards the drums like right away. Switch your mic. That one's dying. Sorry.
Okay. I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought.
You said you
gravitated towards drums.
You always gravitated towards drums.
Yeah.
And
Kevin had said before that, and I think that it's right. I have a vague, hazy memory of it, but that he had actually started playing drums, and I was messing around with guitar, and he just became more interested. We just fell into those things. He gravitated toward guitar more, and so just
shook out that way.
When he was a drummer, So what? I don't remember there being like
a moment.
But just.
Were there other kids playing music much in Bainbridge, or was it just y'all?
Not really. We had our little group of friends that we had 2 or 3 friends that we would play in these little bands with, and nothing ever really stuck back then. Like until I think I was about 16 when we started like our first like real band. It was another pair of brothers actually that we started our first band with called the Insults, and that was my first real band that we started to. Yeah, it was about. I think I was 16, might have been 15.
And you were playing out a little bit.
There wasn't really anywhere to play down there, but we'd played people's backyard parties and stuff like that. Yeah. But there wasn't a club to play or anything like that, and we were underage at the time. But we had this. My dad had this little shed that he built in the backyard, and we just had everything set up in there and just played in there.
I talked to Justin Long, who's a guy out of Tallahassee. He produced a bunch of records and was in a band called No Address. I don't know if you recall that at all. Early 2000s kind of thing, but he was talking about how they would just rent out a place and sell their own tickets.
Yeah.
And just like totally DIY.
Just kind of had to make it happen yourself.
There was, especially when they were underage, because there was literally nowhere for anyone to play.
Yeah.
So, what was the first band that you started like really playing out with? Do you think?
Really, it would have been the possibilities would have been like as far as just like really playing shows. Really wasn't until we moved to Athens, which was '94.
Yeah.
That was the possibilities. And
Kevin talked about that some, but I definitely want to hear like your version of the story of like why you moved to Athens.
Yeah.
What drew you here in the first place?
Yeah, that was basically just that. They were just by that point we were in high school, and Kevin, we met this guy, our friend Bob, in high school, and we were in like marching band together, all 3 of us, and just met him, and he was kind of interested in playing too, and he played a little guitar, and just started that up, and that was we literally would. Bob's dad had a trailer out on Lake Seminole, about 20 miles outside of Bainbridge, and he didn't live there full time, so we just had access to this trailer. We just went out there almost every day and just played, and. That's kind of the same thing. It was just like we'd invite friends out there sometimes, and but yeah, there's nowhere to play. We didn't really play out anywhere other than, like I said, we do little parties and stuff like that. And
So you moved to Athens because you wanted places to play music?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
By that point, we'd really started kind of getting a little serious about it, and Kevin was writing a bunch more songs, and Bob was writing songs too, and yeah, we just wanted to go for it, and Athens was not too far away.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
it had a reputation too, obviously.
Yeah.
For everything, and
and
the cost of living was, I think, really like killer back then.
I think back on it, the first house we found was on Willow Run, which in normal town, and I think it was $500 a month for all three of us, and I think back on that.
That's crazy.
Unbelievable, like how much more expensive things are now. Like we were just able to come up here with nothing really. Find little jobs and make enough money to pay the rent and the bills and be able to play music, and just played out as much as we could. But yeah.
So this has been a recurring story on this podcast, I think, that, and not just with Athens, but definitely with Athens, where I think the cost of living is being so low is part of what was essential to making it's such a cultural center for art, because
for sure
you had the ability to be a starving artist or a starving musician, and still have a roof over your head and still be able to occasionally go out and get something nice to eat or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if that's possible. I guess people still do it here.
I don't know that it is either.
I don't think it's definitely not like it was back then.
Well, and
we'd get whatever little crappy job we could find, and just a job that would let us be off when we wanted to and not have to go in at 8 o'clock in the morning. Just whatever job we could find and make whatever money, and it was enough to get by.
I remember Jay talked a lot about, Gonzalez talked a lot about delivering flowers.
Oh, yeah.
A lot. It's one of the
he
jobs.
Had the flower delivery job.
And we've talked about that a couple times now, but.
Yeah, I delivered pizza. I worked in liquor stores, just worked at Wendy's for a while, just little things like that, just whatever job. You went from job to job.
So you moved to Athens, and you had already formed the possibilities, or at least the first iteration of the possibilities at that point. What are some of the spots you were playing when you first got to town?
The first place we played was Nowhere Bar.
Oh, nice.
Which is still there. We somehow, I think through Bob's dad, but we got connected with Rick Fowler. He's still around. Rick, I think he works at Musician's Warehouse now, just longtime musician around town, great guy. And we got connected with him somehow, and he had a band at the time called the Lonely White Boys. It was Buren Fowler that was in Driving and Crying. And we booked the show opening for them at the Nowhere Bar, and that was the first place. Nowhere Bar. Frill Arrows was a place early on where we got some early gigs. The Atomic Music Hall. Atomic became the place we played a lot.
Yeah.
I love the Atomic. It's not there anymore, unfortunately, but.
Well, and I think that's the other element that I constantly hear about is, and I don't know what the chicken or the egg is, but you have a lot of these spots that have closed over the last 20 years. And as somebody I've been coming to Athens for about 16, 17 years now, but until recently, usually for just like a week or so a year, maybe twice.
Yeah.
But I would just see a snapshot every time. And I think that is a really good way to see the growth or decline of a place.
Yeah, sure.
And I think I've seen both in different ways here. I've seen some things decline, some things grow, and some of the things that have declined are good things, and some of the things that have declined are bad things, and some of the things that have grown are good things, and some of the things that have grown are bad things. But
yeah, I'm sure to see it every once in a while. If you're here once a year, you're like, oh wow, that's totally different than the last time I was here.
It used to be a really cheap trip. I will say that.
Yeah.
I used to be able to get a hotel for $70 a night.
Yeah.
And you eat for under $10 a meal wherever you go, pretty much. And I'm not that old, so this is not that long ago.
Yeah, I know.
That being said, I still think I'm from Tallahassee's a comparable size.
Yeah.
In a college town as well. Even the chain restaurants are cheaper here by $1 or $2 on a menu.
Are they?
Yep.
Okay.
So there is like an element of it being still, I think, insulated from some of the inflation that's happened around the rest of the country. But it's happening.
So I know there's definitely still more expensive places to live.
And you can get like reasonable drinks at certain bars and stuff like that. There's reasonably priced. But anyway.
Yeah.
So were you playing with did you start playing with any other bands at that point once you moved to Athens and the possibilities were playing out?
Yeah. Yeah. There were a few times where I might have been in.
And this is like 95?
5 or 6 different bands at a time. And we moved here in 94, summer of 94. And I mean, that for the first 4 or 5 years, probably, I was, like I said, I remember having to keep a calendar with practice for this band, show with this band, show, and like 5 or 6 different bands. We just meet people. And
you had your own equipment, and I'm guessing you showed up relatively on time.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Because those, I think, especially for a drummer, those are pretty important things.
Yeah, it is, yep.
Be reliable and
just
have your shit.
Be there. Yeah, that definitely was. And I don't know. I don't want to say there was like a shortage of drummers because that wasn't never that. But there's some. Always looking for a drummer.
Sure. I think just
so,
a little bit
more so than guitar players.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot harder to be a drummer of a band without having really pretty refined skills. Yeah. You can't be like learning to play drums and fake it.
No.
Whereas if you're playing rhythm guitar, like you can still be learning and still playing in bands around town and stuff like that. So I think there is like just a natural shortage of drummers.
I think so. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, from my experience, it's been easier to find a guitar player than a drummer, or a good one anyway. Not that
So let's talk about some of the Possibilities records and how those came about, and the personnel on them, and where they were recorded. When did you record the first one?
Before we did a first like official record, we would put out these cassettes. We probably did 4 or 5 different albums. We just put them on cassette and give them out, sell them. And gosh, the house on Willow Run where we lived, we recorded a bunch there. The living room was basically our practice space, and
nice.
We just left everything set up in there all the time, and we'd have parties in there and record there. God, okay, I was drawing a blank, but I guess the first really thing that kind of people knew about, or like we did what was called Loser Stew. It was just something we recorded and put out on cassette, but it was all recorded there in the living room there. And
did Kevin record it?
Yeah, we basically had a 2-track reel-to-reel recorder.
I think he talked about that.
And we'd just play live and record it, and it sounded pretty good. And that was the first, kind of considered the first record we did.
Now, by the time I was like promoting bands and stuff as a kid, I was burning CDs for them.
Yeah.
What was the literal process like for making cassettes? Would you get them manufactured, or were you taping them, or?
We just do it all ourselves. Yeah. Yeah. Just double them ourselves.
Would you have like multiple output, like multiple decks to output it to, or you literally had to do them one at a time?
It was never really like a major operation or anything. Like we weren't selling thousands of them or anything. But yeah, it was literally through the covers ourselves and go to Kinko's and copy them and fold them up and put them in. Yeah, we just did it all ourselves, and we'd give them out to whoever wanted them, and I guess we probably sold some here and there, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just all very DIY. Just did it ourselves.
And this is around the same time that I guess Patterson Hood is moving to Athens, is like 95, 96.
Yeah, he moved. Yeah, I think it was just like a few months before we moved here in '94.
Oh, okay. So he was already here.
So basically the same time.
And so you end up being the first drummer for the Drive-By Truckers. And how did that kind of come about? Did he approach you, or was it just you were just playing in so many different bands?
It actually started out with all three of us in Possibilities. It's funny, it was very exciting because we got our first call to quote headline a show. It was at Friar, which is a burrito joint. But getting our own show for the first time, they called us and said, "Hey, you want to play a show here?" And we were like, "Okay, cool, this is great." So it was one of those big milestones, and Patterson was booked to open for us. It was just him by himself. He was new to town, just playing by himself, and
he hadn't convinced anyone else to move here yet.
I guess not. I think him and Cooley at the time I know they'd had fallen out. I think it might have still been going on. Cooley had moved to Memphis, I think, and
I know
Patterson
Jen hadn't moved here either. He talked her into it.
I think so. Yeah,
in like 97,
96 or 7. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that sounds about right. Because 96 was when we recorded the first Trucker stuff, and I don't think she was here yet. But but anyway, so we just played that show at Friar, and we just hit it off. He liked our band, and we liked him, and just were talking, hit it off, and he just started hanging out with us. He was still new to town too, and we just started hanging out. He'd come over to the house and play with us, and we'd record things with him. And he was kind of looking for. He'd been playing by himself for a while, and he just wanted to get back in a rock band, and I just want to be in a loud rock band again. So the three of us, he asked us if we wanted to back him up, play some of his songs. And we're like, yeah, sure. We were just doing anything back then. Yeah, let's do it. And so that was called that band the Lot Lizards. And
yeah, I've heard
played
about
at the hi-hat several times, and wasn't pretty short-lived, I think. But the Truckers just sprang from that. He asked me to stay on and play drums with the Truckers. Kevin and Bob weren't involved in that, and but yeah, he just gathered some people. Patterson was working at the hi-hat, doing sound at the hi-hat at the time. That was the hub for all of us back then. The hi-hat was that was the place where we all played, and he was doing sound there, and just met a bunch of people, obviously, and saw a bunch of people play, and was like, "Hey, I like this guy." John Neff on pedal steel and me on drums, and it just sprang from that. He just gathered up these people that he met in town, and Cooley was obviously involved from the beginning. I think they had got met together. He's like, "All right, starting this new band." He wanted Cooley back, and so him and Adam Howell from Alabama he just gathered this thing, and he asked me to play drums with him. So yeah, that's how that started.
And the Possibilities are still playing this whole time too.
Yeah.
But at what point did you put out the first like full length record with them? Was that before or after Gangstabilly?
Gangstabilly was the first the first album. We did. We put out a 7-inch before that. It was Bulldozers and Dirt, and
yeah, I've seen that.
I
think 9 Bullets maybe was the B-side.
Yes, God, that's terrible. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's become a holy grail Truckers item. But yeah, we did that, and at this we recorded 4 or 5 songs at the same time. Then those 2 on the 7-inch, and so we did a little EP kind of thing, but. Yeah, and then Gangstabilly was the first official record, and that was 96.
I think, yeah. I think that's when it was recorded. The recording and the release of all that is a little bit...
Yeah, terrible with dates and when things happen. And
I don't know that all of the sessions happened at all the same time. Anyway, It's far. I'll have to... Who was recording those sessions? Do you remember?
That was at Dave Barbe's at Chase Park. He was just starting it out, and
From the very, very beginning, y'all were working with Barbe.
yeah, we had recorded with Andy Baker, who started Chase Street with Dave Barbe, but he had his studio in his house, and we had recorded. The first stuff we recorded was with Andy Baker at his house.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the first thing. But then Gangstabilly was recorded at Chase Park, and it was, and Patterson actually got the studio time from helping hang drywall to build the studio.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he helped Barbe just hang some drywall, and that's how we got studio time and recorded that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always thought he was like really important to the sound, like the overall sound of not just the records, but I think the band itself. Yeah,
for sure. It was that, and then the second album he didn't record. We just recorded that on it, but he obviously became a huge part of everything they've done since then, pretty much. Yeah.
And the Possibilities they put out a record around this time as well, right?
Yeah. Our first album would have been, I think it was 98.
I think so, yeah. Which is, I think, the official date on Gangstabilly, too.
Yeah.
In terms of when it came out and everything.
Yeah, it was all right around the same time. The first Possibilities record was our friend Kelly Kneep he had started a little label called Backburner Records. He put that out for us, and he put out records by Jack Logan and Vic Chestnut, and Barbe did a record or two for him, and Rob Ville had some solo albums dropped from the Dashboard Saviors. And so yeah, he was just putting out friends records pretty much, but just had all these friends that were just great songwriters, and put out a bunch of great records. So yeah, he put that out for us. That was our first Possibility.
It was one of his first too, wasn't it?
It might have been. I hadn't really thought about that. It might have been. I don't know if it was the first, but
yeah, I can't remember what Kevin said about it.
It was one before. I don't know. I think maybe Rob Ville had done one before, maybe. And Kelly and Jack Logan were like best friends. They were close. So Jack was just always recording, putting stuff out. So I think there'd probably been a Jack thing or two. Was probably first, because they just did so much together all the time.
So I'm curious, do you think you had any idea that if I were to ask you back then that Patterson and Cooley and the Truckers, like that band would still be doing what they're doing?
Honestly, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't I was like, ooh, man. I mean, it was great. It was fun.
Yeah,
I loved being in that
band.
But I never had that thought of, oh man, this is gonna be big. And honestly, the Possibilities were my main thing, and it got to a point where both bands were doing so much. I had to.
And they're very different kinds of music too. Very. I love the Possibility. The Way Out's the one that I can't get.
Yeah,
enough
that's
of that
kind
record.
of our. I don't know.
And that's the point that Jay joins the band around like 2000, 2001.
I think Jay and Chris Grahan, Jay and Chris were like best friends. They moved down from New York together in another band, and we met them just through playing they were in a band called Love Apple, and we played shows with them. We just met them, hit it off with them, and we all like the same kind of things, and so the Possibilities have been through. It was always me, Kevin, and Bob, and we'd had another guitar player for a while. We had a pedal steel player in the early days, and we had one of our good friends play bass for a while, and Bob played guitar. We added a fourth member 3 or 4 different times, and when we met Chris and Jay, we asked them, and that was this is the version of the Possibility that was best. So Jay played a bunch of keys, and Chris played guitar. But yeah, and that was about, I think it was 98.
98,
when they joined. Yeah.
And it sounds like that you're at that point taking the Possibilities really seriously. Mm-hmm. That had been what you moved to Athens to do.
Yeah.
Was to take that band seriously.
Yeah, that was my main thing, and
co-writing those songs, those Possibility songs.
Not really. I wrote a couple of songs. I had that Loser Stew that I was talking about earlier, the cassette we put out. I had a couple of songs on that, and but I wasn't doing a whole lot of writing. It was Kevin and Bob just took that over, and they were a lot better at it than I was.
But it was never something that you felt like you had to do. Like you never felt like compelled to write songs or anything.
No.
Some people, it's a compulsion, I think.
Yeah. I'm definitely not one of those people that like wakes up in the middle of the night with some song that just pop. No, I still.
That happens to me with jokes. Yeah, that's what that notepad is from. I'm like trying to decipher.
Just keep it with you all the time. Yeah, I have had that kind of stuff happen before. I was laying in bed and just this melody will pop in my head. It's always something that I've wanted to do and still do, but I've always I love playing the drums. I've always kind of settled into that thing, and I've been very fortunate to play drums with a lot of great songwriters. And part of it with me too is just I'm not going to add anything better than what any of these guys are doing. So I'll just play drums. I was happy doing that, and so it was just there wasn't never really a need for me, because I mean, like those days, Kevin and Bob were just cranking out songs all the time, and
you're just like stay in my lane.
Yeah, I'll just stay back here.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate the rim shot there. I needed that. Seems like my jokes really need a drummer.
Is that offensive as a comedian? Like that's the boom tune.
I think it depends.
Yeah.
I think if it's a good joke, it doesn't need it.
Yeah,
right?
I hadn't really thought about that.
If it's a bad joke,
just now.
I feel like if it's a bad joke, it could save it.
Yeah.
But it can also backfire, because if it's a bad joke and it doesn't save it, it makes it worse.
Yeah. No, that was just a thought that just popped. Never thought about that before. But is that I don't know, like what comparable with a band? I don't know. But is that something that comedians are like, oh God, but thing?
I don't think so. Not personally, at least. Yeah. I know I did a show a long time ago at a coffee shop, and there was a guy that was playing guitar before the show. Yeah. And we just told him to keep going. He was just like playing like acoustic classical kind of riffs or whatever. Yeah. Real quietly, and we were just like, keep going, man. That's fine. And it made it hilarious. It made it objectively funny. It made everything objectively funnier. Because there would just be a break and you just hear the...
It just became like a hilarious thing.
It was great.
Yeah. That's one of those happy accident things.
I think it's one of those things too, like, what's the origin of the bum?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I feel like when it first came out, it was probably super helpful.
Yeah. I guess it was actual thing that, like, back in whatever. Yeah,
like on Johnny Carson or whatever.
Back then, like, it was actually used as a punctuation to a joke. I don't know.
I guess people were a lot more reserved back then.
Yeah.
So, like, telling them when they were.
Okay, you can laugh now.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I never really thought about it, but.
No, that's really interesting. I'm gonna have to go study it.
I think I do some research. Yeah, where did the bum come from? Yeah, it might be another episode over there.
Have you ever played that role on a show where you got to do the bumps?
Not scheduled. I've probably done it as a tip.
To make fun of it.
I've done it, like
to make fun of the singer or whatever.
Singer tells some dumb joke or something, and I'm sure I've done that, but yeah.
Never been on a variety show.
No. I remember, like, in high school, I played timpani at not a fashion show, a pageant of some sort. Anyway, no. But no, not like a variety show with a button specifically, no. I'm sure I've done it jokingly here and there, but.
You're putting out records with the Possibilities. You're touring. Did you guys start touring?
Yeah, a little bit. We did some, yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But you're also still the whole time having to work day jobs, right?
Yeah, having what? I'm sorry.
You're working day jobs the whole time too, right? What are some of those? I know you mentioned a couple of them earlier. What are some of the
I specifically remember I was working at liquor store. I remember having to get off from this liquor store on weekends a lot, and especially for the truckers. Like it got to a point with the truckers where like they were really almost every weekend or so we'd be going somewhere. And but yeah, working at the liquor store then, and I did for the next several years actually. But yeah, it was a job that I could do that. I could take off for a weekend here and there. But yeah, delivered pizzas around that time too, a little bit. I remember that.
The before and after the evening.
Yeah.
Get them the liquor and the pizza.
Oh yeah.
I delivered sandwiches for a while.
Yeah.
And I actually really enjoyed that.
I love delivering
because
pizzas, man. Like,
everybody was always so happy to see me.
yeah.
You're the life of the party.
You got food.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love delivering food. Just you drive around and listen to music, and like I'm a big baseball fan. Whenever baseball season, you just drive around and listen to baseball games, and
Yeah, I'm a big baseball guy
that.
too.
Yeah.
I'm guessing the Braves are your team.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Tampa Bay here, but
Okay.
yeah, but that's
The Rays.
It's because I hate myself.
Yeah, the Rays. I can see that being frustrating. I kind of like how they.
It's kind of like being a Florida
they do
State
things.
Seminole baseball fan.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I was a Seminole fan as a kid.
Yeah.
Switched to Georgia at some point, but
We both hate Florida so much that I think they're certainly compatible. Like
yeah, there's that
they're
similarity.
very compatible in terms of fandom.
You hate Florida as much as Georgia fans do.
Yeah. Or
Yeah, I
I
guess
mean,
so.
that's the only thing we have to argue about, really, is who hates Florida more.
Yeah.
But
Everybody hates Florida.
so you didn't always stay in Athens. There was a time you moved back to Bainbridge for a while. Am I right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, this was after I got married. We had our first kid. I was that job at the time. My wife's dad had he just kind of wanted to do something different with his life. He quit his career that he had sales job for a long time, and he was sick of it, and he's like, I wanted to open a pizza place. So he opened this pizza place. It was actually in Grayson, which is between here and Atlanta.
I got
about
you.
30 miles from here. And and
you
I
do
was
pizza.
actually, oh yeah, I've done a lot of pizza. Yeah, I've worked in many a pizza joint, and still, part of me still kind of wants to go back to it at some point. But anyway, loved everything about making pizzas. But anyway, the liquor store job that I had with we had a young child at the time, and having to deal with her and her daycare and figuring out what to do with her between me and my wife, working, and it became a thing with the liquor store out. I was like managing it that time, and my boss was like, I really need you to be here like these certain times, which, yeah, I know, that makes sense, but I can't. Anyway,
Yeah.
so that liquor store job kind of was like, all right,
Lifestyle
this ain't gonna work
incompatibilities,
anymore.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's around the time that I heard my wife's dad, my father-in-law started this pizza place, and he asked me to help him run it. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. He's like, I'll pay you the same money you're making right now. And yeah, sounds good. Yeah, and that unfortunately didn't work out too well. He kind of lost some money on that whole deal.
I gotcha.
And so yeah, it was.
Were you still playing in bands the whole time?
Yeah.
At that point, though, what was that like? Especially with somebody with so much equipment, were you like leaving your drums here, or?
I take that back. I wasn't actually in a band full time then. Like the possibilities were done by that time. Yeah, actually, I'm just trying to think now. Kevin had started the Arcs, and so yeah, I actually didn't have a full time band. Actually, when I moved back down there, we moved back down there for 3 years. My mom was a real estate appraiser, and she needed help with that. She's like, and when the pizza place thing was falling apart, I was like, my father-in-law was like, I just can't afford to pay you anymore. And I said, okay. So mom was like, move down here. I had a child that she wanted to be near, obviously. So move down here and help me with the appraisal and learn. That's a good idea. I'll learn how to do real estate appraisals, and I did that. I got my license and all that. Worked with her, and we were there for 3 years, and then moved back here. But I was in a cover band down there. Just some friends from high school that I hooked up with again, and they had a little cover band that was a legit thing. They played, actually, Tallahassee was one of the Bullwinkles in Tallahassee.
Oh, yeah, I know Bullwinkles. Yeah.
That was one of the...
I don't go there often, but...
Probably, yeah, I wouldn't imagine, yeah.
I like to make better life choices.
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting.
If I was getting paid to be there,
yeah, that was the thing. I was getting paid for it, and those friends from high school that it was fun playing with it. You just play these...
For context, Bullwinkles is a very college-oriented bar in Tallahassee.
It was wild, man. Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, it was funny. There were two main places that cover band played. Bullwinkles was one, and a place called Puds.
I've heard of that place.
Have you heard of Puds?
Yeah.
It's notorious. I don't know if it's still there or not. It might be, but it was literally this kind of a warehouse building out in a really small town called Brinson, Georgia, just like 15 miles outside of Bainbridge. And it was literally down this dirt road with houses on either side. Not like a neighborhood, rural dirt road. And there was just this bar out there in the middle of nowhere. And so, yeah, that was two kind of very interesting, wild places to play shows at. But it was fun. And back then, I still had that kind of attitude, like, I played in a cover band. Like, that's lame. Yeah. But it was fun, man. It was just something to do and make a little extra money.
I will say that area, man, that's what the people pay to see, or go see, or whatever. Like, they don't really go see a lot of original music in that area. No. I think it's similar to like what Patterson talks about with the Muscle Shoals area and why he left it, because it was a recording town. People wanted to hear cover bands, and he wasn't interested in doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of original bands down there back then. But
yeah, I think there was like a bubble, and we talked about one of the bands for a minute earlier, No Address. There was like a bubble where 5 bands out of kind of that area got signed. Social Burn was like from like Bluntstown, Hosford area. There was Presence and No Address, and then Stand Still got signed. They ended up working with, but
do you remember a band? God, what they were called? Was it Gruel?
Yeah,
you remember them?
Yeah,
I remember them.
They're still around a little. They did reunion shows every once in a while. Yeah.
I remember Gruel. I don't even know if
that may have been one of Mike Coleman's bands.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike Coleman was a guy I worked with at Vinyl Fever.
Oh, okay.
I think
I don't know if I ever knew him or met him or even saw him. I don't, but I just remember they were a big enough deal.
Bacon Ray. You ever remember that band, Bacon Ray?
Bacon Ray?
Yeah. Spring Break '82. Those are, I think, some bands that.
Yeah.
They're doing a big, like, punk, 80s, 90s punk reunion festival.
Oh, really?
Coming up in about a month and a half, I think, from now. Not when it's probably happening as this airs, to be honest with you. But so one thing that strikes me is the Truckers were notorious for playing like 200 shows a year.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you were really more interested in having some kind of a home life.
Yeah.
What were some of the early days of touring? Because, like, I'm thinking about, there's this window in the late 90s where there's no internet, there's all these resources that it's like almost like touring in a different world than it is now. Is there anything that comes to mind that?
Yeah, it was just Patterson especially was just very good at promotion, and I never really paid attention to that kind of. But I just know a lot of it was just Richmond, Virginia stands out because you just go to play in the town, go back there a couple months later, play there again, meet people, play there, and just build up the crowd. And that was a lot of the shows that I played with the Truckers, was playing for nobody at first and going to Atlanta over and over again, play there, more and more people. Richmond, Virginia was one. But yeah, it was just that. Just
that makes sense.
You just have to go back and play there again and play there again. And
how do you keep your spirits high doing that? That's, I feel like, one of the hardest.
Well, it's not even that was, the possibilities were more like that. It was, we got more just kind of trying to find the right word. We were just disheartened by it more, as the Truckers were like, nah, Patterson especially, he didn't care, man. Just like, he was going for it, and we just didn't have that gumption or somebody in the band that was willing to. We'd go out and play a show. We'd do a tour for a week or two here and there, and just play for nobody. And we just got into that, like, what's the point of this? So, like, there was two different kind of
almost story, philosophies behind, And I think a couple of things I've heard Patterson say in The Secret to a Happy Ending in particular is he's like, when you fall, you got to fall forward. So at least you gain a little yardage. But the other thing I think about is just he really believes there was nothing else for him.
Oh yeah.
Like that was his only, and I feel if you feel like this is your best shot of making something of your life.
Yeah, that was the whole thing with him. This is all I got. I'm gonna make it happen, and I got a ton of respect for him for doing what he did. I'd never had that in me, or like the possibilities. For example, we just didn't have that person that. At that point too, we had all gotten into relationships and getting married, and we didn't have kids yet, but starting that kind of adult life thing, and I did it like backwards. I had a kid real young, and now I'm like on the other side of that, and I'm just ruining my life. So just screwing it all up.
Just screwing it all up, exactly. So one way our paths crossed that I was unlocked for me, by Kevin the other night was when you were living in Bainbridge.
Yeah,
the Truckers on the Rock and Roll Means tour came through Tallahassee, and you played a song with them. You came back. Was that the first time you had played back with them? And since
no,
that happened before.
It happened a few times here and there.
I feel like I'd even seen it maybe at a festival or something like that.
I don't know, but festival, like probably Athens, obviously. They play at Athens, and I'd sit in for a song or two here and there.
I don't think I was coming to Athens yet. Rock and Roll Means World. I started coming a couple of years after that. Yeah, because that was 2008.
Yeah, it was 08.
18 years ago.
That's insane. Yeah,
it is insane, man. It really is.
Yeah, that was Tallahassee.
November 2nd.
November 2nd, 2008.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I only remember because I went up to Atlanta like in the middle of the night on Halloween because I had no plans.
Yeah.
For the Atlanta show, which was the first.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was just like they came to the Moon in Tallahassee, and I was a big fan of Hold Steady at the time too. So I contacted them and was like, "Hey man, love to go and see the show." And like, yeah, got me tickets to the show, and played a song with them. It's funny.
Was it Buttholeville?
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah,
that was kind of when I played a song with them. That was
the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy. It was a big crowd, and I was like, "Oh man, it's crazy." And I'd seen so many shows at the Moon from younger days, and it was I'm playing at the Moon at school.
What are some of the early shows that you remember going to?
Man, I saw. Driving in Crime was like, we saw them a bunch. Like every time they came around anywhere, we'd go see them. Kevin and I both were just big fans of theirs. And
is that part of what drew you to Athens too, you think?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, because they were from, I guess they're from Atlanta, but yeah, go to Atlanta, Athens, and we'd drive to Atlanta to see shows
From
a
Bainbridge.
good bit too. Yeah, but
Situated in kind of a spot where you can.
yeah, it's like
super.
a 4-hour drive to Atlanta from there.
Yeah.
Not
It's
insane.
about the same as it
I mean,
is
we
from Tallahassee, yeah.
we were young. We just drive up there and drive back. You know, like,
I did that night, the night before the Drive-By Truckers Hold Steady show at the Tabernacle. I drove back to Tallahassee that night.
yeah, even farther down. Yeah,
because I was like, I've got to be back tomorrow because they're playing at the Moon.
yeah,
I'd rather sleep in my bed.
yeah.
So I'm going home.
I know. I mean, it's funny. Didn't even really think about it. But yeah, man, let's go.
Yeah.
I can't imagine doing that now. But
No.
jeez.
I feel like if I had to, I might. But
yeah, we probably could if I forced myself. But yeah, the Moon though, I saw the Lemonheads and Red Cross there.
oh yeah.
That was a big one. I remember seeing Screaming Trees there. Great. What else? I know there was a bunch of shows we saw there.
I was at a house show with the guy from the Lemonheads. Not
Oh, really?
5 years ago. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was wild. Yeah.
Oh, it was funny. I'm sorry. I'm going to cut you off.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
The first kind of, I guess, big show we went to, Kevin and I went to, my mom took us because we were underage and like before we could even drive. We went to see DRI there. And that was at the Moon. It was DRI and Sick of It All.
Oh, hell yeah.
And it was another band or two. I can't remember who else, but just hardcore show. We were all into that at the time. And
did your mom like it?
she thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
She sat up in the back and she was a music fan. And
that was my childhood.
Yeah.
My mom took me to shows. She'd sit in the back. I'd go down in the pit. And
yeah, she was really cool about that. You know, it wasn't her type of music, obviously. She's like, wow, because seeing that kind of just the mosh pit and the drummer and the singer of DRI literally got in a fist fight on stage at that show. Like, I remember the singer just dove back into the drums, and they shut the show down for a little bit, and yeah, it was nuts. But yeah, so my mom was watching all that. Wow, and she was like, yeah, that was interesting. But yeah, that was at the Moon. That was like the first rock show, cool rock show we went to. Yeah, at the Moon.
what brings you back? What brought you back to Athens? So you moved.
That was always the plan.
It was always like a temporary move.
Yeah.
And that's what led to the Lanes finally getting together a good bit.
We had already, while I was living in Bainbridge, we were talking about it. And I think I even came up a few times before I moved back. And
you moved back what year?
Times. That was 2010.
Okay.
That was like 07 to 10. It was 3 years. But it was always the plan. The job thing just worked out. When Mom needed help, she wanted to be around her grandkid. And we actually had our second child in Bainbridge while we were living there. But
so you get back to Athens, and what bands are you playing with at that point?
the Lanes was obviously one. We started that.
You started that up.
Right then.
Right when you moved back?
Pretty much, yeah. Even maybe before I officially moved back, we had already kind of started it. But
yeah.
The other band at the time was the Wyddells, which is we're still a band. We hadn't really done much in a little while, but yeah, that was one where before I moved down there, Brandon, who's now one of my best friends, he was playing bass with the Wyddells, and he wanted me to play drums with them, and I was like, I'm about to move out of town. Mm-hmm. So it was literally like, I'm moving out of town. I can't really start a band. Anyway, so when I came back, that was another one. It's like, all right, I'm back, and they still needed a drummer, and started playing with them too. So it was the Lanes and the Wyddells at that point.
And there was always talk of putting out a Lanes record.
Yeah.
But I know that there just kept seeming to be something that got in the way.
Yeah.
With the final thing being COVID, I guess, being the final thing that.
Yeah. It was just basically life thing.
Right.
We never really stopped doing the band, but it was just, we'd record a couple of songs here and there. And not that it didn't work out or anything, but it's just, I don't know, just record this and never really finish it, record it, or not even really plan to, let's just record a couple of songs with our friend in this house, that kind of thing. And
But not with any real like intention of for what you were going to do with that.
yeah, there wasn't any, let's make a record. It was just what you do,
Right.
record songs. And we had this kind of set of songs and let's record them. And wasn't never really any grand plan. Obviously, at some point we wanted to make a record, but just kind of years go by and like life, and Kevin started having kids by that point.
And he's playing in the Arcs too. At that
Yeah, he had the
point,
Arcs too, and I had the Waddell's, and yeah, just it wasn't never really anything that happened. Just took a while.
That Arcs record is great too. It seems like
yeah.
he's got like all this stuff happening at once.
Yeah.
Put out the Arcs record last year and the Lanes.
Yeah, it's funny, like how that all happens at the same time. The Arcs record, our record, and the Sloan Brothers record.
And I was just about to bring him.
You're about to
too.
get it. Because I mean, that's another one that literally just all happening at the same time.
Yes. So Sloan does all the music for this podcast.
Yeah.
And I've had him on here before, but I'm definitely curious how y'all first met and how he approached you to drum for the Sloan Brothers. And
I'd met Sloan just from back when he was recording shows all the time. He was just always at shows that we played, and he would ask to record us. And yeah, so I met him doing that. But never really hang out with him a ton, just seeing him at shows. And I didn't really get to know him well at all until we started recording that record. Mm-hmm. He'd done the first Sloan Brothers record and had, I don't know how many.
System Update.
50 different people played on it.
It's crazy.
And it was, he kind of jokes that like people were just coming up to him like, hey man, why don't you ask me to, and ask me to play on it? And I had that a little bit. I was like,
yeah,
when are you going to ask me? And I'm not really the type that's going to be like, hey man, let me play on your record. So anyway, that was.
But when the list gets that long,
you're like, hey, wait a minute, come on. Am I that far down the list? Man, I'm kidding.
Oh, no,
I'm
great.
kidding.
So, he doesn't listen.
Yeah, we didn't really. Yeah, no, I'm not listening to this. But no, we didn't know each other than just.
He listens to the theme song and then he turns it off.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right, I don't want to listen to the rest of this crap.
That was a good song.
Good to hear that one again. But yeah, so anyway, I don't know. I think just from Sloan and Brandon talking about, Sloan had this idea for his next record. He wanted to have a band, like
kind of a more fixed personnel.
Having, I don't know, 40, 50, however many it was. Probably, because you can imagine, probably got a little overwhelming. And he was like, all right, this one I want to streamline it and just have a band for the whole thing. So that was where we came in. I think it was Brandon started that thing. So it was me, Kevin, and Brandon, guitar, bass, drums. And we just recorded his song in Kevin's place and still going.
Yeah. I'm just double checking everything.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's how that, and that's when I really got to know Sloan, other than just running into him around town.
So it really was just like a straight up professional kind of relationship at first, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of people that when they go to a shitty job, they're like, I don't want to make friends at work. Yeah. I don't want these people to know me.
I want to just do my thing and get out of here. Yeah.
But when you start working with and doing the things that you really love and enjoy, like that can be super rich for your social life too.
Oh, yeah,
it creates like all these people that you're. And then there's the other side. Like I've got some comedian friends where it's, man, I loved working with you, but that's
all.
That's all.
As far as that goes.
Yeah. But it's not even anything personal. It's just like, if we're not doing anything like super productive with this, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
We just jive so well together or whatever.
Yeah. That's definitely some similar things with playing in band. That was especially those early days like I was talking about before, playing in 5, 6, 7 different bands at the same time. It was just meeting people and going to each other's shows and just meeting people and say, hey, let's play together. And yeah, let's do it. I wanted to do everything I could. Anyway, but yeah, and there was some of that too. Like there was some, not naming any names, not that I can really think of.
Right.
Not that I'm even thinking about anybody in particular. But there was some bands you play with or whatever where you're just kind of, yeah, that's not really.
Or just
not really hitting it off with them.
like, I don't really just want to hang out with these guys, but if we're going to go play music, that's different too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, a lot of similarity there. Yeah.
With the Lanes record, I know y'all started trying to do some remote recording where you would send each other files and during COVID.
Yeah.
And starting to do that. And Kevin talked about how a lot of the times, and I think this happened with the Arcs record some too.
Yeah.
Y'all would get he would get too far down a path without any feedback from anybody else. Is that kind of jive with your recollection of it as well?
I guess there was some of that. Really,
it was ultimately a decision though that you had to record it like together.
Yeah. The Lanes record was different because a lot of it was probably about half of what ended up on the record was, some of it was recorded 10 years ago. Or,
gotcha. Wow.
And then about half of it ended up being just me and Kevin. And we had all these recordings from before, and it was always like, we got to do something with these. And then we just decided at some point, like, all right, we're going to do it. Let's finish this thing. It's been too long. And so me and Kevin just decided we're just going to do this together. So we recorded, I think we re-recorded a couple of songs just us two, and there was a couple of new songs. And so about half of it's pretty much just me and Kevin. And so that was a different way. Just that it happens over many years.
Yeah. I don't have a record player in my hotel yet, so I haven't had a chance.
No portable record player.
I will definitely be listening to it as soon as I get home.
Yeah, that's just like we gotta, and that was part of the goals. You want that vinyl,
that tangible thing.
Yeah, this is our thing, and we did it. Yeah.
So the kind of plan to make a vinyl pressing of it came along with the plan to play Homecoming, though. Is that right?
Yeah, that was definitely like the impetus to like, all right, this is, because we talked to Patterson for a few years about doing that, and it was always, we don't have an album, we don't have anything to promote or sell, and not that was the be all end all playing at Homecoming,
but having something tangible, I think is important.
I want somebody open, like they have something to sell, and so that really was, okay, this is the thing, let's do this, let's actually finish this record. And so that definitely was the thing that made it, that kind of lit a fire, like, all right, we got to get this done. And so yeah, that's how Kevin and I just ended up doing a lot of ourselves too. We can get together. We got together with each other all the time, and it was just easy, me and him, obviously. But yeah, that was definitely part of the reason we got, let's finish it.
Yeah.
Kind of find the right word, but yeah.
I loved the show the other night, man. I thought y'all sounded fantastic. I'm really excited for the record.
It was a lot of fun, yeah. Yeah, that was basically the record. It was same order. We played it all the way through.
Oh, you just played the record straight? Oh, hell yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I love it when a band, when they put out a record, they do exactly that.
It was really smart. It was just like, it just worked out. It was the running order. The record was, this works for the show too. Yeah.
Before I let you go, is there anything else you feel like we missed? I don't want to skip over anything that you maybe meant to get back to or anything like that. Wrap it up.
I don't think so. Brothers, what? No, I don't think so.
Cool, man.
I guess we were talking about the whole truckers possibilities thing. I don't know. I guess we covered that. I guess I was basically going to say those kind of things got to a point where truckers were, they're like, we're doing, they were talking about the Southern Rock Opera thing at the time. That was the big idea. Like had that idea.
Patterson was crowdfunding that, right?
Yeah, yeah. And we were playing some of the songs from that at the time. And that was at the point where like they were really gonna. That's when they started. We're gonna play 200 shows a year, and
Gotcha.
And so it was like I had to be like with Possibilities was my main thing, and just really honestly my style of music and all that kind of thing too. But
yeah.
So yeah, that was. I guess we covered that, but anyway.
A good bit, yeah. I think the one thing I don't really know that we covered too closely was Jay joining.
Oh yeah, we
the
didn't
Possibilities.
really.
I think we started to and then got squirrel.
Yeah, we didn't go into that too much, but yeah, Jay and Chris joined in like '98, and that was definitely that was the version of the Possibilities that was the best, and it was just great. We all just hit it off. We got along together. Jay was writing some songs with us, and Chris worked at studios at the time, so he was real into recording. He had Kevin and Chris they lived together in this little place for a while that had a tiny little basement, and we had a studio set up down there. Chris did, and that's actually where we recorded Way Out. Excuse me. And this album by Jack Logan called Monkey Paw. Those two albums happened at the same time, and the Logan album was basically the Possibilities with just playing Jack songs. And
Gotcha.
Yeah, so just Jay and Chris were huge Possibilities, yeah. And Jay and Chris was who played with us as the Lanes this last show. We had a couple other guys, Richard McCulka and Chuck Bradburn, have been the guitar and bass player in the Lanes.
Gotcha.
The whole time.
Gotcha.
And we had just not really done anything for a while, and it had probably been maybe even a couple of years since we played a show or anything, and it was the trucker thing, the homecoming thing came up, and let's get Jay and Chris. We've played together for 30 years, and we've done all kind of different Beatles cover bands and Jay's solo stuff, and we've done all these little one-off Smithereens cover band shows.
Yeah, you played on Jay's solo records too, right? The Bittersweet and.
I didn't play on the Bittersweet. That was Joe Rowe played drums.
Okay,
but that was
gotcha.
But that was Chris.
Mess of Happiness, though.
I didn't play on that either.
Oh, okay.
That was actually recorded. I think most of that was done while I was living in Bainbridge.
Oh, gotcha.
So, yeah.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
But oh God, I'm drawing a blank.
I am too. It's fine. Don't worry. I edit this to make it seem.
Yeah, I was going to say. That's right. Oh God, that's terrible. What is Back to the Hive?
Right.
Back to the Hive.
Yeah. Back to the Hive is the one.
Yeah, Back to the Hive was when I played on that. Like 3 or 4 songs on that, and that was once again it was me and Kevin and Jay and Chris.
Basically, just a Possibilities read.
Yeah. Without Bob.
Yeah.
He moved like up to Richmond several years ago, and we hadn't really talked to Bob too much the last few years. But anyway, so basically me, Kevin, Jay, and Chris, and yeah, we've done all these different things, like cover band shows, and whenever Jay does solo shows, it's us 4, and the Lanes thing was like when we're doing the show, we're gonna be not starting from scratch, but it's been so long since we've done anything.
Yeah.
Let's get Jay and Chris. Jay was obviously going to be there already,
right?
With the truckers. So
he was getting worn out by the end of the night. He said,
"I don't know." I told him.
I don't know how the hell he does it, man.
I don't know. I told him several times, like, I don't know how you do this, man, because
they played 30 songs after he played your set. They played 30 songs Friday.
I don't know, man. I know, and for 4 nights in a row. I had this grand idea when they first. I always go to a show or two, usually one of the homecoming shows. I always go to at least 1 or 2. And this year I was like, I'm going all 4 nights. I'm gonna do it. And it got to the point like I went the first night, Wednesday night, and I was like, there's no way. And that's just me going and hanging out.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I was playing the whole.
I've slept pretty much all day the last 2 days.
I mean,
just
that weekend was just like Saturday and Sunday for me. It was just like, I just was the laziest piece of shit. That God, I just didn't do anything. I don't know how any of those guys do it.
And half of them were out at that comedy show the next night too.
God.
I know.
Sunday night,
they're Superman, man. I don't get it.
I know. They save up a lot for that. They know it's coming.
They probably don't do a whole lot else other than.
Yeah, they're not really right now. They're not
right?
playing a bunch right now. That's the only thing for a while. I think this whole year they're not really doing a bunch of touring.
So Patterson Saturday night at the very end of the show said that they are not playing. They're playing a few shows in Florida, so I'm definitely gonna have to go.
I saw some festival that wasn't out. Yeah.
But recently. Jason's gonna be there too, so I have a feeling there'll be some crossover, and that'll be pretty.
Yeah, might be.
And then he said they're going in the studio and recording a new record, and then they're gonna hit the road next year. So
yeah, Jay told me that they're starting to work on the record.
I'm really excited because I think that their records are best when the country is in hell.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
A lot of inspiration, and it's definitely
when they get pissed off, it seems like
a lot to be pissed off about right now.
There sure as hell is. There sure as hell is.
Yeah, so they should have plenty of material.
Matt, it's been really great talking to you, man.
Yeah, man, you too. Thanks
I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
Once again, man, that Possibilities record, Way Out, is so good, and I also can understand why when you put out something that good and it doesn't blow up.
Yeah, it's disheartening. Yeah,
I get that, man.
We did not a ton of touring, but we hit it hard, and we had reviews in all kind of magazines, and we had some pretty decent promotion. Like we go to play a show in St. Paul, Minnesota, and there was an article in the paper, but there'd just be nobody there.
Right. So, I do think that record is getting a lot more appreciation as time goes on.
I hope so.
I think it's becoming kind of a cult classic.
Yeah.
So
that's always what I've hoped is enough people would eventually discover it, and it's the thing I'm most proud of that I've ever done, and I just think it's a great album.
I'll put a link to it in the description.
Yeah, please do.
We'll make sure.
And hopefully, at some point, we can have that out on vinyl. That's a dream too. But yeah,
that would be killer.
I would love for as many people as could find out about it that don't already know about it, because I think it's great. I'm biased.
It is, and if the Lanes record is just what I heard the other night, then it's fucking awesome too.
Pretty proud of that one too.
Yeah, you should be, man. Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
That was my interview with Matt Lane. I had a great time talking to him. If you haven't already, go check out my interview with Kevin Lane from the Lanes. That's a great interview as well. I've also had Jay Gonzalez on, so make sure you go back and scroll through, see what else I've done. I want to take this time just to thank y'all for listening, and please hit that like, subscribe button. I've also launched a Patreon. It's really just a way to directly support the show and try and help it be more sustainable. There will be some bonus content and some early access and things like that, but it really is just a way to support the show. The link's in the description. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. We'll see you next week.